Hello, everybody. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the Strong, Grounded, Unstoppable podcast. Now, we had on a few weeks ago the amazing, unconquerable Simon Clark, and his book's due out any minute now. Now, last time he told us his story around the terrible, terrible car accident that happened in 2019 and his recovery and his life since. What I really wanted him to tell us all about this time is the adventures that he's been on. He's been on so many incredible adventures. And any minute now, I'm going to stop talking and allow Simon to take us on some of these adventures with him. So welcome again, Simon.
Hi, Susie. It's such a pleasure to be back with you.
Oh, bless you. It's great to have you with us. And I, I can tell you we've got some exciting plans for speaking out there in the flesh,
Haven't we
starting on the
just?
6th of May. So, yes. Simon, go ahead. I know you had one specific goal that you wanted to reach within 5 years of leaving hospital. I mean, okay, first was beginning to walk again. Take us from this point.
So yes, I set myself a lot of walking challenges, mostly because I was told I would never walk again. Obviously, the first big one was walking across the hospital ward because everybody said that was impossible. Then my first real goal was to walk out of the hospital under my own power within the first 6 months within 6 months of the accident. I managed to do that with about a week to spare. And then secretly, I had another goal that within 5 years to the day of the accident, I wanted to be standing in Everest Base Camp. And I managed to do that. It was incredibly hard. It was very challenging
For
mentally and
how?
physically.
Yeah, God, I bet. So that was secretly. How long did you keep that a secret for, and from whom? All the hospital people?
Literally everybody. I kept because mm, when I announced to the hospital staff that I wanted to walk out of hospital within 6 months, they sent me for various reviews because when you have severe head injuries, there are problems with unobtainable goals and unrealistic expectations. So there is a lot of psychological intervention that goes on to try and help you understand what's going on. Obviously, I had all of the grief and loss as well, so that compounded it. So their initial reaction was, "Oh, he's just fantasizing. It's completely unrealistic, and he's setting himself up for failure. So we need to review this and help him understand and come up with understanding his new life."
As they said it would be. The
Yes,
grief
exactly
and
that.
loss was over the death in the accident of your partner of 22 years, Lindy,
That's
who I
correct. Yes.
knew probably better than I knew you at that time. So it's actually really good to be able to revisit and to talk about these things and to move forward in a way that you are such an inspiration. So the hospital, don't shake your head at that because you are. The hospital wanted to, out of kindness, they wanted to knock back your dreams and goals.
So I just want to be absolutely clear here. The hospital were not being cruel or anything like that, and I do not have anything negative to say about the hospital staff. When I was in ICU, they were truly incredible, absolutely stunningly wonderful people. But the reality of it is, when you have a catastrophic, life-changing injury, it's very, very hard for the brain to adapt and adjust, and it's very common for people to try and go back to their life exactly as it was.
Yes, I
and
understand.
and so it's managing that. It's also, if you establish goals that are unrealistic and then fail on those goals, it sort of reinforces that you're in a bad place, and then you can
Mm.
have downward spirals, and mental health becomes a really, really big risk there.
Okay. Yes, that's understandable too.
One of the issues I had was because I was a middle-aged guy. I'd lost obviously the love of my life. I'd lost, my businesses, all forms of income. I lost my identity. Everything was gone basically. And then I had all of these injuries. I was in an extremely high suicide risk category as well. So if I set myself up for failure and then crashed because of those, then that could have been other problems. So, out of absolute kindness and medical professionalism, they
Okay.
started a process of managing expectations.
Yes.
Acceptance is a big thing, and just
Yes.
helping you understand who you are now and
Yes.
what you can do and what's reality.
That is really, really excellent to hear that. Because as you say, you had these awful injuries, but also the grief of losing Lindy, and you were in a coma for 2.5 months, weren't you? So, you to wake up to what you woke up to, multiple, oh, unbelievable challenges. So,
Yeah, that was a very challenging time. And I think one of the hardest parts for me was, firstly, I blame myself for the accident. I mean, nah, that's completely ridiculous, but it's survivor's guilt. It's a natural thing to do.
yes, yes.
But also because for the real world, the accident was several months ago. Lindy was dead, had been buried, her funeral was done, and everybody'd moved
God, yeah,
on.
yeah.
So I kind of was imparted this news in a matter of fact way of, oh yeah, that's been and gone, that's done. Say goodbye to your old life. Now time to get on with it, and
Yeah,
that's kind of where I was coming from.
yeah, yeah. So you had this secret goal to walk out of hospital and then to get to Everest Base Camp.
Yes, so I think I've always been, I suppose, defiant is an easy way to describe it.
Quietly though.
Yes,
You don't make a lot of noise about it, do you? Just
what
quietly.
stubborn, I think, is another good one.
Yes.
Stoic is maybe probably a politer way, but
Yeah.
one of the quickest ways to get me to do something is to tell me I can't do it. So when the doctor said you'll never walk again, I came up with this ridiculously unrealistic goal of, no, I'm going to walk out of the hospital, not a problem at all. Um, because of the reaction I had when I said that, I learned very quickly that some goals are best kept to yourself.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I came up with this ridiculously audacious goal because in a previous life I'd done a lot of training with human potential and positive thinking, overcoming adversity, and sort of this goal setting and things.
Oh, so you
So
had that in your mental armory already.
absolutely yes.
Great.
And
And
so
actually, can I just say, Simon, I love to hear that because top of my website is resilience isn't just a nice to have, it's an absolute necessity. And by saying that, it's actually let's put it into place before anything,
mm,
before you need it, so that it's there
absolutely,
when you have it. And, like insurance. Yeah, so
absolutely.
that makes a real lot of sense to me that you had that in you already. Great.
So the main thing for me was the way I understand goal setting is goals are basically a stepping stone towards achieving your purpose. Most people think their goals are their purpose, and I think that's where a lot of people fall over and struggle because in my opinion, most people's goals aren't big enough. And I was always taught that if you set your goals, say to have the wonderful house in the countryside, and then 50, 60 years later, you're on your deathbed and somebody says, you've sacrificed your life for that house, was it worth it? And that kind of puts the goals into perspective for me. So for me, goals are a small, tiny component. You should absolutely have a purpose. Then you have a vision of how you'll obtain the purpose. And the goals are the stepping stones to make sure you're on track for that.
Great.
And so
Great.
I've had a lifelong purpose. I had it etched on one of the walls in one of the offices, and I haven't changed one word of it ever since I sort of started using it, and it
And
guides
that
me every
is?
day. Do you really want to hear it?
Yes, I do.
To build a global organization dedicated to improving the quality of life worldwide, to create products and services with like minded individuals who have a common purpose, to live and work in a prosperous environment that encourages productivity so that we can further improve the service we render to our family, our friends, our community, and ultimately the world.
And all of that obviously came from memory and your heart.
Yes, so
I love that.
you can imagine when I started speaking to the psychologists and they wanted to talk to me about goals, their goals were things like hold on to this pencil, be able to feed yourself independently,
Yeah.
eventually be
Gee
strong
whiz.
enough to go to the bathroom independently. And those are all
Yeah.
very real, and they were all things I absolutely couldn't do at the time.
Mm,
But when I start reciting that as my goal, you can see why they would send me for review. And
I can. But the wonderful thing is that if you have a purpose and a why that does get you out of bed every morning, you didn't lose sight of that, and you're doing it now.
and
You're
this is
doing
exactly
what you've just said now.
this is exactly why I believe in really, really big, audacious purposes,
Yeah.
really big goals, because yes, at that moment in time in the hospital, being able to use a pen or being able to feed myself would have been huge, but they're only stepping stones towards the bigger journey.
Mm,
And so when I decided 5 years' time I'll be standing in Everest Base Camp, what that instantly tells my brain is, well, of course you're going to be able to feed yourself independently. Of course you're going to be able to walk.
yes.
And
Yes.
they're already
Yes.
wrapped into a much bigger thing.
Yes.
But the medical professionals managing expectations, setting
Yes.
yourself for
Yes.
failure, it was too big at that time. So I quietly kept it to myself and
Yeah.
I didn't tell anybody. And in fact, most people didn't know about it until days or weeks before I got on the plane and went for it.
Amazing. How did that feel getting on that plane?
Scariest thing I've ever done in my life.
Mm. And
Um,
stepping off it or stepping onto that, because is it snowy at you had your,
There was snow when I was there. I
yeah.
was there at the end of sort of summer coming into autumn, so it was just before the sort of snow really started. In
Mm,
fact, the monsoon season was still going when I was there, so it was more rain and high winds, basically.
yeah. So the scary bit,
So for me, the scary bit was actually letting other people down.
I knew it
Some
would
very
be, yeah, knowing
I,
you.
w- I wasn't scared of doing the thing. In fact, I passionately believed that I would die on that trip. I expected to either die on the on the flight because I'd been advised about long haul flights and things like that.
Okay.
And if I survived that, then altitude, elevated heart rate, carrying weight and things, these were all things that were probably going to end me very quickly. So I was very comfortable with that concept. But a few days before leaving, several people said that I was, um, I suppose, being unkind because I wasn't using this as a fundraising vehicle for the charities that I believe in.
Mm,
So I allowed them to persuade me. I set up a fundraising goal and a GoFundMe page, and I promoted it to a few people. And that changed the dynamic because instead of going to Everest for myself to prove or
yes.
fulfill a promise to myself, suddenly I'm committed
Yes.
to other people. And
Yes. Yeah.
I expected to fail, which meant I would be letting those people down. And that's what's terrified me.
Okay. But you didn't fail. You bloody made it.
It was a struggle.
Who was a struggle? I remember reading on your website, Simon, that you suffered horrific pain because you live with pain anyway, but you still did it. Who supported you on that journey?
So I was connected with an organised trek, but because of how slowly I walk and the various issues I have, there was no way I'd be able to keep up with those people. So what I basically said very clearly to the organisers that I'll need my own sort of porters and support. Obviously, I'll travel with the people, but they will be walking far ahead of me. And of
Yeah.
course, nobody believed it. They thought I was just being nervous, and once I got there, I'd be fine. But no, the reality of it was I was walking with a single individual, a wonderful chap called Ambar, who, uh, I mean, he was amazing. There is
Mm,
absolutely no way I could have done it without him.
wonderful.
And
Yeah.
he looked after me every step of the way, and we're still in contact now. He's just a
Yeah.
truly amazing individual.
Oh, that is brilliant. So how many miles is it and how long did it take you?
Uh, I want to say it's just over. It's about 35 miles, something like that. It's not far.
Oh, I'm thinking that's a long way. And how long did that take you?
It was over the course of 12 days, I think it was in the end.
And you
So
slept in tents?
no.
Oh,
Because it's the high Himalayas, the tradition there is you have what they call tea houses.
right.
So if you imagine a really grotty kind of youth hostel,
Yeah.
basically it's a rectangular building, usually single story. There's benches around the outside where you sit during the day. There's a yak dung fire in the middle, and that's the only sort of form of warmth. And then basically, when the nighttime comes, you either sleep on the floors, or sometimes there's bedrooms and dormitory rooms around it.
Yeah. So were
So
you carrying your own rucksack of provisions, or did?
So I was carrying a day pack, which basically had sort of rain jackets, water, things, sort of protein bars, high energy things like that. But Amber was carrying my sort of main equipment. There's absolutely no way I could have
No.
carried that, and certainly
No.
by the end of it, I couldn't even lift my feet off of the ground.
Yeah.
But that,
But then you had
that.
to get back down.
Yes. So I knew it was unlikely that I would maybe be able to walk back down. And how the trek generally works is you have a number of days to get to base camp. Say 10 or 12 days to get there. But then when you're coming back down, because altitude is dropping, oxygen is getting better, you get fitter and stronger as you go.
Okay.
Typically, people allow 2 days to return the journey.
Yeah.
Now, my problem was the chronic fatigue because when I sleep, my body doesn't recover fully. So if you go for a really long walk and then you go to bed, normally in the morning you'll feel a little bit sore, but by a few hours into the day, you're generally fine again.
Yeah.
For me, it doesn't improve. So I'm steadily getting worse and worse as I go. So as I was walking along, I was saying there's absolutely no way I can do this return journey. I could do it, but there's no way I could do it in the time needed. And then you've got flights and you've got weather windows and things like that. So I cheated a little bit and I made sure there was a helicopter waiting for me when I came out.
Well, I don't think that's cheating. I think that's extremely wise, because you've got to practice self-care, because that wasn't the only adventure you went on. You had a number more. Please tell us just
which ones interest you?
The driving the car that was meant for scrap across the Sahara.
That's the most recent one, yes.
Searching for bears in where?
That was in Transylvania, so Romania.
Transylvania. Searching. Okay, tell us about the bears first. Next.
So that actually so my first big trip, sorry, I'll have to backtrack slightly, but my first big trip was to trek across the highlands of Iceland. And that was really a test to see if I could survive doing a multi-day trek. And my theory was...
Simon, was that before your base camp?
Yes, it was. So that was 2 years before base camp. The idea was... up to that point, the longest I'd ever managed to do was maybe 5 or 6 miles in a day, and then I'd generally need about 2 to 3 weeks to recover before I could do anything like that again. Obviously, as the Everest trip was getting closer, I needed to put myself in a position where that was impossible, and I would just have to buckle down and get on with it. So I went on a trip in Iceland, which was 5 days walking across the highlands, and the theory was once I actually get in there, basically you are there. There's no real way to get out. There's certainly no rescue or anything like that. And because of the weather, generally you are stuck. So you have to do the trek. And that was my kind of concept of like, that'll force me to do it. So anyway, I did that trek. It was thoroughly lovely. I would recommend it to everybody. It's one of the greatest, it's known as one of the greatest treks in the world. And it truly is. It's stunning. But while I was there, I was chatting to a lady who had recently done a trip in Romania that was basically seeing some castles and things like that. And she went to a bear sanctuary and she was telling me all about it. I thought, wow, that sounds amazing. So when I got back from Iceland, I jumped on a plane to Romania and basically went and had a bit of a wander around up in Transylvania in the mountains, which is just stunningly beautiful. I visited the bear sanctuary, and then that's when I got talking to some of the guides and the rangers about, well, they're actually there in the wild in these mountains. You can, go and have a wander and see what you can see. So
go and have a wander amongst the wild bears, knowing that you couldn't run away very fast.
Well, as long as I ran faster than somebody else, it would be fine.
Yes.
But no, I mean, it was amazing. I managed to see a couple of bears, actually out in the wild, which was incredible. And yeah, that was just a truly stunning. It was a very short trip. It was very easy, but it was just nice to be out in proper nature, because the mountains and the forests there, it's like stepping back in time. It truly is.
I've been to Croatia to photograph Mariana for book 2. And Croatia was totally beautiful, and the forests were amazing.
Yeah, very, very similar places.
Yeah, so that's the bears. Are they big grizzly bears, or are they
So
little brown bears?
these are European black bears.
Ah,
So
okay,
I'm trying to think. Um, they can get quite big, but generally they're probably stand about when they're walking on all fours. They're probably about 4 foot off the ground. When they
okay,
stand up, they can be sort of 6 foot or something like
yeah,
that.
big enough
Uh,
then.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're certainly not the size of a grizzly bear, but they're not that small either.
Mm. So you hopped on a plane to go and find bears. What came next?
So next was when I tried to climb Mount Tukal in Marrakesh. In Morocco rather. The rationale behind that was the doctors had basically told me that altitude would be a really big problem because of blood clots. I had a lot of blood clots while I was in hospital.
Okay.
So that's part of my brain damage. I had them in my brain, lungs, heart.
Jeez.
I nearly had limbs amputated because of blood clots.
Gee, are you on
Uh,
blood thinners now?
I was for a very, very long time. I'm not
Yeah.
now.
Because you're moving now every day.
Uh, I'm moving, and basically, with blood clots, if you're predisposed to have them, it is a lifelong condition, and it's horrific. For me, my blood clots were directly associated to the
Yes.
accident and my body healing. I've
Yes.
never had a history of it. Nobody in my family's ever had a history. So
Great.
as long as something silly doesn't happen, I should be fine.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Speaking of silly, well, not really. We must just remember that you set yourself the goal of reaching Everest Base Camp within
mhm.
5 years of coming out of hospital, and you actually achieved that with a month to spare. Is
Yes, I
that
did.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. And did that set you on the fundraising path for whom?
So I'm raising money for the Great Western Air Ambulance charity. That is the specific team that rescued me. But at the same time, I want to raise awareness for all of the air ambulance charities around the UK because they all operate in the same way. It's slightly different in Scotland and sort of Ireland and places like that. But as a general rule, certainly in England, all of the air ambulances are completely self-funded. They get no lottery grants. There's no government funding. So I basically set myself the task of raise as much money as I can for the team that saved me, but then also try and help all of the others and promote them as much as I can. Um,
Brilliant. And I want to come back to that with the speaking tour that we embark upon in May. But before that, this scrap car.
um, yeah, so when I was in Morocco, I got the taste for sort of deserts and desert adventures and things like that. And I grew up as a child watching things like the Dakar Rally, and so the idea of driving in Morocco, Mauritania, and Senegal and places like that was always something I wanted to do. Um, and I decided at one point I needed some sort of I needed a vehicle that was comfortable almost to sleep in, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not sort of
It
talking
does.
camper van
Mm.
or anything like that, but because I was going to a lot of hospital appointments, I suffer with chronic fatigue. I still do now. When I would go to a hospital and have quite an invasive procedure for something or the other, generally what I would have to do is leave the appointment and then sleep in the back of my car for several hours before I could even drive home again. Um, and because a lot of the appointments were in London and a long way from where I lived, it was just a big deal, and driving was quite a challenge. I'd have to stop every half an hour just to sleep for a few hours to have enough energy to then drive on again. Now, I know the easy solution would be, why didn't you have a driver, or why didn't you go on a train? But this was all sort of during COVID and those sorts of times. So it became very problematic.
You're not really one for taking the easy route, though, are you?
Not really. I'd rather challenge myself and
Yeah.
improve as
Yeah.
much as I
Yeah.
can.
Which
And
is such an inspiration to so many others. I have to affirm that. What colour was your scrap car? And
so
when you
yes,
say
sorry.
scrap,
So basically, I wanted to find a vehicle that was a little bit bigger and a little bit more comfortable for being able to sleep on the side of the road, basically.
yeah,
So I had my eye on a few things, and of course, then everybody starts saying, "Well, why don't you get a van or get a camper van and do this?" So I started thinking about that, but I didn't really like the idea because it was a bit too much of a commitment for me. And one day I stumbled across a little black Mitsubishi people carrier, basically,
Mm.
and it was due to be scrapped. It was believed to be in a shockingly bad condition. Nobody was interested in it. You'd have to be some sort of fool to want to buy it. And I thought, that's the car for me.
Love this.
Um, I kind of latched onto it very, very quickly and built an emotional bond because I felt it was being written off just the way I had been written off. And
So my cars always have female names. Does this vehicle have a name?
I call it Deli because it's a Mitsubishi Delica.
Yes.
I should have a more imaginative name, I know, but
No,
it just kind of
that's
stuck when I.
perfect. My the one I've got now is she's a Vauxhall Astra Elite, so she's called Ellie. She's
Perfect.
and I had a Rover Connoisseur or something, and she was called Connie. I think that's perfect, Delhi. So
Yeah.
Delhi supported you a long way.
So basically, what happened was I fell in love with her on the spot. Bought her, decided to get it back into a usable condition. What I actually found out was she was actually in fantastic condition. The people didn't really understand what they had, and I think they tried to sell it and didn't get any interest, so they just were going to get rid of it. Mechanically, because it's a Mitsubishi, it was absolutely bomb-proof, worked
Wow.
perfectly. I did take it to a garage and have a massive overhaul done on the engine just for safety, because what I hadn't told them is I had been chatting to a friend about taking it on a little bit further an adventure, and the idea of why not drive it down through Morocco and try and get as far down as possible.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and when I mentioned it to a few people, they all thought I was insane because why would you take something that's so old and is going to break and going to get stuck? I mean, a Japanese people carrier, why on earth would you take that on an overlanding adventure? What they didn't realize was the potential of the vehicle, because the people in the know it's an incredibly capable vehicle. And in fact, when you talk to people who do these sorts of trips, everybody quietly smiles and is like, yeah, that's one of the best ones you can have.
Okay. Well,
Um,
that's something else you've imparted fabulous knowledge to our audience. Oh,
so
amazing. So how long did that trip take you?
Um, it was about 3.5 weeks in
Okay.
total. So I drove from Gloucestershire down to Portsmouth, got a ferry down to Bilbao in Spain, drove the length of Spain with the idea of if we had any breakdowns, then it's relatively easy to fix it rather than getting
Did you
into.
have someone with you, or were
I
you
did at that.
solo?
I had somebody with me for the bulk of it, but we would sort of detach from each other and
Hmm.
go our own way.
Mm.
And just kind of go off and explore. So driving down through Spain, yes, I had a good friend with me, but it was just the two of us.
Mm.
We did suffer a major mechanical problem with Delhi going through Spain. Actually, I stopped for some fuel, went to start it, and all the electrics were completely dead. It wouldn't start, so I thought that's the trip over. But I managed to fix it and get it going again. And she drove without skipping a beat the whole way around. And we basically did a complete circuit of Morocco, and then crossed into the Sahara at the bottom of Morocco near the Algerian border, and ended up driving across there, and went right across that side of the Sahara, and then looped back up the coast and drove all the way back up.
Amazing. Did you take
And
lots of photographs?
took lots of photographs, lots of videos, and things like that.
Great. Great. We'll get you back on, or somehow I want to sort of share some of these. Because of course it's not only the physical effort of doing such a thing, but I guess going all those places, the pre-planning and the visas, or and would anybody insure you to fly you home if necessary? That's a lot. All this admin. Some people wouldn't even bother to do it because of all the admin. So how was that for you?
Um, Incredibly challenging. Certainly in the early days, getting all the paperwork for Iceland was possibly the hardest for me. Because a lot of people don't realize, but I had to learn to read and write again. It wasn't just about physically holding pens. I had to literally learn how to do all of that again. So filling in complicated forms was really impossible. I mean, there was one medical form I had to fill in. I think it was 21 pages. It took me 6.5 months to fill that form in.
Bloody
Uh,
hell, excuse my language.
and the bulk of it was, multiple choice as well.
Mm,
But
mm.
it's more a case of I would do I'd maybe complete one question every few hours, and then I'd have to go to sleep and rest to build up the energy to try again.
Mm.
And getting new neural pathways is never an easy process.
Yes. I mean, I know as a baby, we are born with about 100 billion neural cells in our head. And, we can have positive ones, we can break them, the pathways with negativity, and we can reconnect them and build them with positivity. Your neural pathways must be going, yay, clapping together. I remember when you were lying in your hospital bed, you learned to communicate, first of all, by blinking.
Yes.
What about, okay, so you had to learn to read and write. What about speaking? How was
Uh,
that manifested, and what did it feel like when you spoke your first word?
Speaking kind of came back quite quickly, actually. One of the biggest problems I had that I didn't realize is I couldn't speak because I had a number of quite large tubes going down my throat.
Right.
Um, but it started off as a very croaky, very weak kind of groan, and then I would
Mm.
pass out. So it was a massive relief to be able to communicate properly. I think somebody commented to somebody else that, yes, Simon's now speaking and he won't shut up. Um,
Yes.
but the frustration and the effort of communicating via blinking is beyond words, and um, that could have been one of the outcomes for the rest of my life. I mean,
Yes.
at one point they hooked me up to a computer that, a bit like what Stephen Hawkins uses, where so
Mm.
it's all about eye movements and things, and it talks for
Right.
you.
Okay.
And yeah, they had me all set up to configure using one of those, and
Wow. I
uh,
remember watching a beautiful film called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which the man he has locked-in syndrome, doesn't
yes,
he? And
yeah.
he has to learn to communicate by blinking. And it's not as easy. Everybody thinks, oh, we can just, but you've got to learn, you've got to spell out each word, haven't you?
Yes.
I
So
mean, I
basically,
think as well as your courage, Simon, your patience to just, oh God, I give up, I throw in the towel. But
but
your
what choice do you
patience,
have? I mean, I was lying in a hospital bed where I couldn't move. For the longest time, I couldn't open my eyes. And so I was working on opening my eyes for a really long time. When I finally managed to open them, I then didn't have the strength to shut them. So I was stuck staring at a ceiling tile with bright lights, and I couldn't close my eyes. So I got very, very good at counting the holes. So this sounds really strange, not holes. The ceiling tiles in the ICU were the polystyrene ones that you see in a
yeah,
lot of office buildings, and they're kind
yeah,
of slightly perforated.
yeah.
I got very good at counting those holes, and that was my exercise for the day, was just to literally count.
But so you couldn't move your head, so you could move your eyeballs.
I could move my eyes, yes,
Yeah.
but I
Okay.
couldn't move my head because not only did I not have the muscle strength and the
Yeah.
nervous connections, I was also wearing a full neck brace because at that
Yes.
point my neck
And
was still broken. So
yeah. And
uh,
that's photo is, well, it was in all the newspapers, but it's on your website. Um,
yeah,
the
that
air
that
ambulance.
collar was horrific. That was one of the worst tortures of my
Wow.
life.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so we're going back quickly. I learned to blink so I could communicate. Now in my brain, that's perfectly brilliant. I'll just start using Morse code, and I can just blink Morse code to everybody. I used to be able to do that, so no problem at all. Morse code only works if the person on the other end understands it as well. Um,
Yes. Yes.
so
Why did you have to use Morse code? You haven't been in the forces, have you?
I've messed around with the forces a little tiny bit. I spent a long time in the mountains and things like that. So these are all just very, very useful skills for
Yes.
communicating
Like
and
Bear Grylls skills.
that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Although I wouldn't do some of the things that he recommends.
Okay. Okay. So,
Some of the things he likes to drink are not high on my list.
oh, what, and lick frogs and things. I don't know. I haven't
Exactly.
seen.
And
um,
yeah, 5-star
I
hotel for me, thanks.
oh, with you all the way on that. Oh, that bodes well for when we take our talk all around the world. Um, I actually had a Zoom or a Google Meet this morning with a wonderful young woman who lives she's Pakistani, she's 24, and we're going to be doing some collaboration. And she was one of the audience at the International Women's Day, where I was a woman on the panel for Blue Ocean Consulting in the UAE. So, and I know we've got Dubai on our sort of list, haven't we, of places we want to go. Anyway, and people are amazing. Her father was a dairy farmer like mine, but of course
Brilliant.
she's in this middle of little village in Pakistan with very little, very little, but such a determined. She's absolutely experienced now from teaching herself by the age of 24 on LinkedIn and social media. So we're going to
Amazing.
cross collaborate and create a win-win-win. I love this learning of people's stories. She's going to come on my podcast. I told her
Brilliant.
about you because everybody's challenges are different. Now, when we start to give our talks, it's called resilience and positivity. Oh, Simon. Resilience and positivity, the resilience and positivity experience,
There we
because
go.
you and I are both all about resilience and positivity, but of course from a very, very different background story. And in fact, there's not only one size fits all with resilience,
Exactly.
different forms of that. And so this lovely woman called Nimra, she has a different form of resilience with what she's lived through. But what we want to do is, using our experiences and our skills, change lives. Hence embarking on this speaking. And one of the main things that you want to do, aside from change lives, and is your book out yet or any minute now?
It is literally at the printers now, so they
Okay.
are running off copies as we go. It could be in my hands within the next couple of days.
Okay.
So
Okay.
fingers crossed.
Yeah, so maybe in the next week or so, come back on again and we'll talk about the book, because your one of your main aims is to support the air ambulance and fundraise for it. And a lot of what we do is going to be supporting good causes. And so is there anything what you wanted to say? What's your next adventure, by the way, just in aid of the air ambulance?
Um, that's a tricky one because I've got several on the cards at the moment.
I'm not surprised.
I had originally planned and set myself the goal of walking to the North Pole within 18 months of getting to Everest Base Camp. Unfortunately, that's fallen by the wayside because of various funding issues and global climate problems.
Okay.
So that's on the back burner at the moment. It's still going to absolutely happen. It's just not going to happen within the timescale.
Yeah.
Because of the drive across Morocco and the Sahara, I've got very interested in interesting road trips and overland driving journeys now.
Mm-hmm.
I've been asked to do another one down into Mauritania in September of this year,
Mm-hmm.
and we're sort of wondering about logistics with that. I'm planning to drive from the western coast of Namibia over to Mozambique, so basically left to right all across Africa. I'd like to try and do that within the next year or so. I'm working on driving up to Nordkapp, which is the sort of the highest point in Norway. So do a full Arctic trip as well, because I think Delhi spent enough time in the desert. She needs to come and see the cold as well.
Oh, is she automatic?
She is an automatic because she's
Yeah.
a Japanese, so it makes life so much easier.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I've just been asked, would I be interested in a drive from Istanbul to Beijing? So I'm now working out how possible it would be to drive from the UK down to Istanbul and then
Okay.
carry on. So basically UK to Beijing,
Yeah.
basically. Um,
Absolutely incredible. Um, I mean, I know this is you've only really just got started, haven't you?
Oh,
Although
absolutely, yeah.
yeah, it's amazing. Please come on
Um,
again to share
but
about your
just to
book.
quickly finish off
Sure.
with
Mm.
with proper walking and proper challenges. So my actual goals that I'm working on for that is do the North Pole. If I manage to survive that, then I will go and do the South Pole. And then I've been challenged to try and climb the highest peaks on all of the 7 classic continents.
Who by whom?
Uh, a couple of mountaineering friends. I won't name them, but just to
Are they coming with
protect.
you?
There's one who's very interested,
Mm.
but the one who dropped the challenge did it more of as a joke. So I won't say who he is because his wife will probably kill him.
Oh God, okay. But on the other, it's actually more fun, going with someone. When I
Sometimes it is.
travel, yeah, I like to have someone to go, wow, would you look at that? And sort of share stuff. Um, Next time you come on, actually, we're going to talk about something that you said to me when you were here a few weeks ago. And that is what you realized about your relationship with Lindy. You were with her for 22 years, and you've very kindly and bravely said that you were willing to talk about or offered to talk about that relationship. And some relationships are amazing for the onlooker, but they're not so wonderful from the inside. But what we're
Um,
going
I
through, because I've done the same, it becomes the
yeah.
norm.
I think that's the thing. I think every relationship has its difficulties, and I think a lot of people are struggling quietly for many reasons. And this idea of putting on a brave face for the world, whether that's a good thing or not, I think
I
an
don't
awful
think
lot of
so.
people struggle.
Yeah. I think masking, I don't believe in fake it till you make it. I just keep trying, but masking is exhausting, and
Oh,
it
absolutely.
also it just completely dismisses and almost destructs who you authentically are, and that's what we need to be, who we are, and true to ourselves. So,
Absolutely.
and a lot of my work, as you know, is supporting women who are going through it potentially and obviously with relationships. And so for a man to come and talk to my audience about that is really special. So we'll book that in soon, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Simon, is there anything else you want to say before we say goodbye for today?
I think the main thing, really, especially for you and the audience, is just never give up. Just
Yeah.
what everybody else is so quick to put an image that they hold of you onto your life and what they expect you to be, but you need to believe your own image and not let
Yes.
anybody change that.
Yes. Yes.
And do not let any negative thoughts adjust the image you hold of yourself and
Yes.
your self value.
Yes, and I totally agree with that. For many women in particular, I think that's not as easy to
Oh no,
do. And it's
it's horrifically
all
difficult.
about, for me, it's the self belief. And I say to the women, I'm here to believe in you until you are able to believe in yourself. And I'm so excited to walk the journey and be a guide to Sarah, who was the one who was successful for the sponsor place on Mastering Mental Toughness. I've just posted about her today on Facebook and LinkedIn. So that's going to be a really wonderful journey. It might not be easy sometimes, of course it won't, but
I can
um,
guarantee it won't be.
no, but she's what she said. Do read the post and share it if you will. What she said is wonderful. And what she's been through, you wouldn't wish it on anybody like yours, but look what it makes us become.
And that's the thing. It's there's the old saying about that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and it's absolutely true. It's just horrific that so many people have to go through these sorts of things. But if you can make it through and you can find the positive, then you will only get stronger. You will
Get
only
strong
become
and
a bigger
rise
person.
higher. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to ask for help. There's
Exactly. That's the key.
nothing wrong at all. It is key. And actually, when you ask for help in any which way or form, it makes the giver feel a lot even better than the receiver.
Oh, absolutely.
Hormonally, serotonin levels. So ask for help, people, if you need it. Simon and I are here. His book,
Definitely.
Unconquerable, is out soon. Your website is,
It is simonhclark.com,
yeah,
and there's no
Clark,
E
no
on the end of
E.
Clark.
Yeah, okay. Okay, lovely. Thanks for today. It's been absolutely
Thanks,
brilliant.
Susie.
And people, if you've enjoyed this and you found it inspiring, please like and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next step of Simon's journey and our journey together very soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Amazing. Thanks, Susie.